welcome to the Honest EP podcast. We're the podcast for health professionals and the wider community looking to explore diversities in health, ask some hard questions, and have some honest conversations. My name is Archie. I'm an EP based on cities on the beaches, and joining me as always is our health business owner, Andrew. Andrew's not with me right now, and neither is Jo Duncan-Nagy, but they are in my garage band, and we're going to talk to them again after our last part about challenging behaviours. We're now going to move the conversation more towards neurodiverse clients and some behaviours you might see in clinic or the gym that could be challenging to work with. So let's jump in. I thought we should pivot to talking about some challenging behaviours from some different population groups. So Jo, one you have a lot of experience with is dealing with some challenging behaviours in our neurodiverse population. What are generally the challenging behaviours that you've come across? And then we could talk about what you've found are the best ways to manage it.
So definitely overstimulation is a big one. And how clients exhibit their overstimulation can be very different. It could be like retreating and just going into oneself, or it can be very kind of explosive, and it might include damaging walls or damaging themselves, so a bit more harmful. Those are probably like the two main categories that I'm seeing quite a bit of. And
when you first see it, it can be quite scary. Like, oh God, what do I possibly do with this? It's like, do I jump in? Do I hold them? And you just have those kind of initial reactions.
Yeah, it's really confronting, especially those louder, more explosive sort of behaviours. And I think the important thing there is always your personal safety.
Yes.
Is super important. But also, ideally, and this is with the benefit of hindsight, there are these things that exist that are called behavioural support plans. And they are a godsend. They're so helpful.
And what is a behavioural support plan?
A behavioural support plan is a step-by-step action plan that you can use when a client is being overstimulated or is having a moment of dysregulation. And so it is written by a behavioural support practitioner, usually, and they're experts at learning about different client behaviours and interpreting them and what they mean, because especially in a neurodiverse population, all the behaviours mean something. And it's just their way of expressing it, particularly if they are non-verbal or not very verbal. And they can't just tell you, I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now.
Yeah.
Or, someone who's maybe neurotypical might be having a panic attack and they can comprehend what's happening and express that to you. This often does not happen, say, in an autism population.
You can't say, I'm feeling anxious.
I need to go outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it often happens all at once, and it's like dialing the volume up 0 to 100. If that happened to me, I'd be all over the place.
Absolutely, yeah. So these behavioural support plans, you can normally access them if they're an NDIS participant.
Yes.
Should be able to access it. You can normally ask the support coordinator if they have one or if they have other team.
It's a question that we ask as part of our intake.
Yes.
Now, so is there a behavioural support plan for this participant? We ask that as part of our intake, and it gives us a bit of a heads up.
Absolutely.
If something is...
So it's a good... Okay, so then when we ask that, if they respond yes on the intake form, is there then a follow-up question?
Well, we obviously need consent to be able to access that form, but that would be something that we followed up as a pretty high priority with that participant. Because like you said, it's a very good insight into how we can assist those people when they are a bit overstimulated.
Would you say it would be a normal response for if we asked, can we have access to it? They would say yes?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is very...
Yeah.
And again, I appreciate that we are in a private practice and, we don't see a huge amount of it, but within other contexts, it's very normal, right? And the language that you use is not like, oh, does this person, can I see it? It's like, it's just a question that you ask.
Yeah.
In the same way that you might ask someone if they have a mental health diagnosis, is there a behaviour support plan for this person?
Yeah.
It's just a very normal thing to ask.
Diagnosis. What are your NDIS plan goals? Do you have a behaviour support plan? Simple things.
Simple.
Yeah. Great. Cool.
It's also really great for the client, because if you are able to understand them a little bit deeper from that first meeting, you can build that rapport and that trust much quicker. And then there's often warning signs, and you're not going to know that having met the person for the first time. So utilising the client as the expert, that behavioural support plan's most likely been done in conjunction with them from someone who can communicate with them, which is great. But then also like their carers, so their support worker who's bringing them to the session, or their parents if they're around for the session. Using those people who know that person very well. What does this mean? Is this something that I need to be concerned about? How can I communicate this to the client? Do you think that they're comfortable right now? What can I do to make them more comfortable?
I think it's a really good point, because oftentimes, particularly for people who are non-verbal or not very verbal, you don't really know what's happened to them that day. They might just be having a not so good day. And if they can't communicate that effectively, all you're seeing is the behaviour. And that can be very difficult if you're just learning to work with someone for the first time about what is it am I actually seeing? Is this a regular part of their interactions with other people? Or is this something that we should actually, get the support worker in, or get the psychologist or whoever in to be able to provide some support to them and to us
Yes.
in how to manage this?
Yeah. And particularly in this population, the behaviours always mean something, and they mean very different things to if Archie was to go around and smash the walls right now. Like, that would mean something very different to my clients who do it because they're trying to express to me that they're overwhelmed because of maybe the music. And Archie can tell me, you're overwhelmed because this really bad thing happened to you today, and you can explain it to me.
Yeah.
But my other clients don't have that opportunity with me.
So having an understanding of what things can overstimulate people could be useful, or would be very useful.
Yes.
What are some examples of actionable steps that you have seen on a behaviour support plan?
Looking at the warning signs for someone. So there'll be like these sorts of behaviours that are being demonstrated. It might be covering your face. It might mean drinking a lot of water. It might mean tapping your foot or searching for something, pushing you away, pulling something towards them. They all mean something, and then there'll be a corresponding column that says, this probably means this. Like pushing away means, I don't want that, stop it. Pulling towards means, give me that. Drinking water a lot means, my blood sugar's out of control right now. I'm not feeling well. So then you can help do the thing that'll make that better. So if it's I'm covering my face, it's for that person, and it could be different for different people. It might be leave that person alone. It might be revert to your 5 words or less, or only one choice or 2 choices per question, not open-ended questions, because that's just going to be too much to interpret if you're in a heightened state. It might be some very basic key signs that you can do with that person, or some music that you can play that they really like to make them more comfortable.
Nice. So then on top of that, how has that changed what you've been able to do? Okay, so how has that change when someone has maybe gotten to that point where they are overwhelmed and they are overstimulated, and now they're presenting with some challenging behaviours? What then? So
I had a great example of this last week, actually. I have a client who can get overstimulated semi-regularly in the gym, and that can develop into loud banging of the gym equipment, and sort of throwing himself on the floor onto equipment. So when I first started working with this person, before I knew they had a behavioural support plan, I would ask them questions like, are you okay? Without using any key sign, because I didn't know about it at this stage. How are you feeling? let's just rest now. Kind of all those three statements, one after the other, which for one person might be okay. For this person, it was way too much information. And the covering of the face with the shirt, the lying on the floor, the hyperventilating, I might leave them for a little bit and then come up again. What I learned after reading the behavioural support plan was that it's not good to approach that person before they've uncovered their face, because if they've still got their face covered, it means they're not ready to talk. Which sounds so obvious now, but when you're kind of stressed and you're wanting to help someone, you've got no idea.
Yeah.
And every person is so different. So I now know that if they've got their face covered and they're hyperventilating, I need to wait till that breathing rate has reduced, wait till they have taken the shirt off of their face and they're just lying there. And then if they're just lying there, I can ask, are you sick? And I can wait. I can do a sign, yes or no, and I can just wait for them to do something. And I should never try and get them to move because that is, again, too much. So I just really have to sit it out until they show me that they're ready, that they're a bit more calmed down.
Will you normally get a response to that?
So I had to practice this a couple of times, this new sort of communication style, working in with that person. And normally when this dysregulation has happened, it'll happen once. They'll calm down for a bit and then get re-stimulated, and it will happen a couple of times, and then I have to tell them to leave because they're going to damage something or they'll damage themselves. And normally when they leave, they're okay. Like they're wanting to leave by that stage anyway. So that would happen. And then last week, for the first time, the client was able to calm down and become regulated. And then using those behavioural strategies of just really paying attention to them and speaking to them in a way that they need to be communicated to at that time. They didn't have a second episode for the first time in 2 years.
Wow.
One episode and then able to re-regulate and get on with the session and leave relatively happy. Some things were still different. They normally do some things that let me know that they're really happy. They weren't doing those, but they also weren't going into complete dysfunction again. So that's a huge moment.
Wow.
But it took practice and restraint from me and me talking to the support worker as well. Like, hey, this is the plan. I'm the one talking. And if they tried to go in and be like, no, we need to leave him alone. Yeah.
Just one form of stimulus.
One
Simplify
thing at a
everything.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just wait.
Just wait, man. Like, what's the rush anyway?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't gain anything out of making them upset again.
No.
They don't gain anything out of the session if they're already not feeling well anyway.
You gain 0 out of doing another set of deadlifts.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Most people probably just wouldn't have come anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you can establish that, like, you can have a time where you're not feeling good and then re-regulate, that's a positive learning for that person.
I guess it's interesting because some clients who may have more independence would let you know, hey, I'm not going to come in today. I'm not feeling very well. But a lot of these clients don't necessarily have the autonomy to do that. So it's like, no, this is the part of the week where you go to your EP session. We're going.
Yeah.
And they get driven there and they get dropped. And then you have to deal with whatever mood they're in that day. And sometimes it has to be us to decide, hey, today's not a good day for a session. We're going to end it there.
Yeah.
And that feels like a really counterproductive thing to do if you haven't seen what happens when you do try and push through and do see, oh, I know what happens when we do get overwhelmed and a not great day becomes a worse day. And once you've seen that, you go, nope, I know what days are not good days to exercise and be in a gym with music and other people. Let's leave it there. Let's come back another time.
Yeah.
No harm done.
It's like changing your mindset from that was a lost session to they got to see that I respected them and where they were at today and I didn't push them.
Yeah.
And that's your rapport building. And that's why people come back and why they like coming to the gym, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I guess to wrap up that topic, what would be, I guess more in general, some basic strategies people could use at whatever space they're at to make sure that for most clients who come in who may feel like they can get overstimulated, what are some things that people can do to set up their space well? Andrew? Jo? I don't know.
To set up their space well.
Yeah.
So part of the answer to that is asking them. So if they have the capacity to be able to answer that question, or whether there is a behaviour support plan, or whether there is a parent or a guardian or someone that we could kind of ask that question to, like if this person is prone to being overstimulated, what are some of the things that we could do to help them in that situation? That might be turn the lights off, turn the music down. If somebody's deadlifting and dropping weights next to you, maybe don't drop the weights for a little while. If there's a lot of noise, right? If there's a group class going on, maybe that group class can go for a little walk for 5 minutes and just give that person a bit of less stimulation for a little bit of time. For the practitioner, is there someone that I can go and just get some help from, or just a bit of not even interjecting into that situation, but just a bit of moral support. There's something going on over here. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to deal with it, but can you just kind of help me a little bit?
And then on the other side of that, sometimes I've found that the person who's with them, whether it is a parent, a family member, or a support worker, might be too over involved, and it's just providing too much input, too much stimulus into what is already a new environment, and they're trying to make sure that the person likes the new environment, and there's too much going on. And I've sometimes asked the parent or support worker, hey, do you mind if you wait out in the waiting room and I can just try some things, just the two of us? And that's actually allowed the person to calm down a little bit, because they're not being encouraged or asked how they're feeling constantly. That's a really interesting thing that can happen. Some of our EPs have had success with some younger clients who are verbal, who before they start their session, they'll go into a quiet room and just check in and go, hey, how are you feeling today? Is today a good day? Is today a bad day? Before we go out to the gym, what do you feel up to doing today? And they might tell you right there. And we've had an EP who does that now with a particular client during the week who is, a kid, and sometimes the kid just really relaxes and opens up and releases a lot of frustration just verbally, which if they went into the gym would have been a really really unproductive session, because they would just not be able to manage the environment at all. And we wouldn't have known why. But because we sat down beforehand and checked in, it was fine. It was actually good. We could plan the session around that and work out what to do. So those are some good things. Jo, do you have any other clinic setup tips or session setup tips for managing these?
You can always be aware of your diary and how you're scheduling clients. So if there's if they like a quiet setting, then there are often times where the clinic is not as busy, so you can put them in that. And most support people around that client will make it work. They'll
Absolutely.
make sure that they can get to the clinic in a time that it's going to be quiet.
Yeah.
So that's, I find, a really important thing for some of my clients.
They understand why as well. It's like, hey, if you come at this time that you really want to come at, it's going to be way too overstimulating. So I would not recommend it.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, totally. Yeah, okay. Well, let's find another time then.
Yes, because otherwise it really is going to be unproductive and,
Yeah.
and not very helpful.
Yeah. Then they have to, deal with the rest of the day, and it's going to be shit,
Yeah. I often like to get a little recap about what's happened in the day from the support worker. as well, because that's always helpful. You know, it might be, oh yeah, they had their blood taken today, so that's been a hard day already. So then if the client is really upset and not wanting to engage in exercise because they have a fear of needles and they've had their blood taken, I'm not taking that personally. Like, I really understand where that person's coming from now.
Absolutely.
So then you can just relax as well as the clinician and just go with the flow a bit more easy.
Some other things we've found helpful, particularly in our neurodiverse population, is if you have these clients, some clients who struggle to concentrate in a session and see a gym, and they, in their head, they just see all these possibilities of all of these things that, and most of them are not gym appropriate behaviors. It's like, that's a ball, that's a bat, I'm going to whack that ball with that bat as hard as I can. It's like, the ball's rolling towards that person, I don't care, I've got to hit the ball. It's like, okay, watch out for the people. And you're like, oh, how do we teach boundaries? Using a whiteboard and having a visual representation of what the client has to get through in a session, and having built into that breaks and rewards or achievement sections or the client's choice of exercise. What I've read is people can see that and they can go, great, I know how to manage my energy to then get through that. It's like, I can see a finish line, I can see my break point, I can see how much I need to concentrate before I can then relax or do something else.
Yeah, I find clients often love to tick things off in a sense of accomplishment. And for some of my clients who can talk but are not very verbal, especially at the beginning when I'm still learning about them, and sometimes they talk more as you get to know them, but not so much at the beginning, I now write, how are you, on the whiteboard, and they can write how they're feeling, but there's no way they're going to tell me.
Yeah.
And then they can, there's like smiley faces all around the clinic. Probably need
happy.
Happy. Probably need to wipe some spit off the wall or something from when they've gotten creative.
But you may not have been able to get that as a verbal answer.
Yes.
If you didn't write it down. There's something, people find it super satisfying to finish something that's planned out right there. I've had sessions go from complete chaos where it's literally chasing someone around as they jump on equipment and throw things around to, oh, yes, we're back to the start. Can I tick that round off? Let's go again. And it's like, okay, yes, absolutely you can. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, it's amazing how much it changes. And you've done, there's one simple trick.
Yeah, seriously. If you haven't tried a whiteboard with clients who struggle to get through a half hour or 45-minute session, try the whiteboard. Whiteboard's great.
Yeah. You can always redirect back to the whiteboard too. Like, this is what we're doing next.
Yeah.
I don't see it ticked off.
Yeah.
And then, you can use a bit of humor in there as well, a bit of sarcasm. Like,
it also takes it away from you telling the client. It's like, I want you to do this. It's like, oh, the whiteboard says this, therefore we must do this. And it's like, I don't know who wrote the whiteboard, but the whiteboard says.
Also with intellectual disability, sometimes you can practice their reading and writing skills from it. Just
absolutely,
it might take a minute, but that might be really helpful for that client.
Yeah.
And just some autonomy as well, so they're not always just asking you what to do. It's like you can check, because I found that sometimes it's a habit asking people what's next and relying on other people, but they were also able to make decisions about what types of exercise they wanted to do when they got a bit more used to doing a little bit more for themselves.
Very good.
Which is good for your life skills.
Just life skills.
So knowledgeable.
We're just helping in so many different areas.
Oh, really?
Oh, dear.
Smarters. Saints at work.
Well, maybe we should wrap it up on us just being the smartest people in the world.
Very good.
Very good. Yep. Andrew, how was your second beer?
It's gone down very well. Just as well as the first one, I think. Yeah.
Jo?
Huge fan.
Huge fan.
Would buy again.
Absolutely would buy again.
Great recommendation.
I don't know how they do it, but it really doesn't taste like your licoricey dark ale. Jo, have you had many other dark ales?
Maybe like 4. Don't know any of their names other than Guinness. Big fan of Guinness.
Big fan of Guinness.
Yeah.
We've had Guinness on the pod before.
Yes.
I don't think we were as enlightened then.
Was it from a can though?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely not. That's just not proper Guinness, is it?
Well, it's got to be from a tap.
It's got to be from the tap, and it's probably got to be from Ireland. So
Apparently, the cans come from Ireland.
yeah, but still, anytime you're getting the pour from a can, you're not doing the proper pour and the settle that you hate so much.
Yeah. I hate waiting for the settle. There was this thing in the can. There was like a filtery thing.
Yeah.
That when you pour it out of the can, you go straight upside down. You don't like pour it softly. You're like, no, you
send it.
upend the can. Which if you do that with any other beer, they go, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You want half a beer of head. That's silly. But Guinness, it works. Magic. There you go.
Beer chats.
All right, Jo, do you want to wrap us up? Say see you later to everyone and go from there.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, guys.
Well, thank you for having us, Jo, on your podcast.
Thanks for having me. I really had a good time, and I'm glad you liked the beer.
Beer is great. We will be back for part 3. See you later.